Hello everyone, today you will hear an interesting story. 10 years ago, I decided to open my own business. At that time, I was working as a night watchman in a local shop, but I was not satisfied with my job. My salary was small and barely enough to cover my living expenses. One day, after my shift, I saw a program on TV where a businessman shared how he built his capital from practically nothing. I thought, why not try it myself? I gathered all the necessary documents and went to the bank to ask for a loan to start my own business. Unfortunately, my first attempt failed. However, I didn't give up and went to a second bank hoping they would grant my request. After a short conversation with the lender, he agreed to give me the necessary amount. Satisfied with this first step, I moved forward. After a couple of weeks, I was able to open my own music CD store. I chose a building closer to the center, which also had a living quarter on the second floor. Without hesitation, I moved in. I didn't have a lot of belongings, so it didn't take long to settle in. I enjoyed this situation, being close to my business and work. Of course, I had to give up my job as a watchman to focus on my new business. However, it was challenging to handle everything on my own, so I put up advertisements for a salesperson. I didn't have to wait long before a young girl approached me. She honestly told me that she had no experience in trading and asked for a trial period as she needed a job. Her name was Tiffany, and she had previously worked as a waitress. She was just over 18 years old and had left her foster parents, who had treated her poorly. I felt sorry for her and agreed to hire her. It turned out that she was a quick learner, and soon she excelled in her sales position. I also let her handle the bookkeeping. After a while, I noticed that Tiffany seemed sad. I invited her for coffee after work and asked her what was bothering her. At first, she didn't want to involve me in her problems, but I persisted, and she eventually opened up. She shared that the rent for her apartment had increased significantly, and she was struggling to pay it. She hadn't found a more affordable place to live yet. I felt genuinely sorry for her and offered to let her stay with me. We only had one bed, but I put a cot in the room and made space for her. A few months later, my business started to thrive. As Tiffany and I worked together, our relationship turned into an intimate one. We were very compatible, and a year later, we decided to get married. Tiffany loved music, especially playing the guitar. She eventually bought her own instrument and took guitar lessons in her spare time, which she saw advertised on the wall of our store. As the years passed, my life with Tiffany became ordinary and settled. We were able to buy ourselves a beautiful home where we could enjoy moments of peace and happiness. Meanwhile, I continued to grow my business, and the music CD store was making good profit. Tiffany also continued to excel in her musical talent. She began to play so well that she decided to perform occasionally at a club near us. It was an opportunity for her to showcase her art to a wider audience and receive feedback. One day, during one of her performances, a tall man in his 30s approached her. He had deep blue eyes and a genuine smile. He listened to her performance and then, with respect in his voice, said, "Hello, I really enjoyed your performance. You have a lot of talent." "Thank you, but I don't sign autographs," Tiffany replied. "Oh, no. I'm not looking for an autograph. My name is Craig. The thing is, I have my own band, but our guitarist is about to leave, and I'm looking for new talent. Your playing has really impressed me. I'd like to invite you to join us. What do you say?" "I don't even know. I'll have to think about it," Tiffany said. Craig left her a card and told her not to think too much. When she got home that evening, she shared with me that she had been asked to perform in a band. "And what did you say?" I asked. "So far nothing, but he seemed trustworthy. Maybe I should give it a try. I don't know. Usually you end up in groups like this with debauchery and drugs." "You know that," I warned her. "Come on, Jake. I don't see why not. Especially since there's another salesman in the store now. I have a chance to play more than just at the club. I could become famous." I didn't want to let her in, but she asked, and she always puts up with my wishes. I promised her that I would try to find out more about this band first, and then make a decision. At this time, I had already made some useful acquaintances, and I managed to get some information. The band and the lead singer who offered Tiffany's participation were a regular musical group who had been playing various gigs in town for over 2 years and had already released their first album. I had no knowledge of any illegal activities with them, so I was comfortable with letting my wife perform with them. Jake, you have no idea how great it is. I feel like a star. Craig suggested that I not only play, but also perform songs. I tried it, and he said my voice sounded amazing. I shared that with me a few months later. I'm very happy for you, Tiffany. But don't forget what you promised. If there are any drugs, you leave right away. I reminded her. I was a fierce opponent of drug use. My older brother was once in bad company, and his life went downhill because of drugs. After a while, he died of an overdose. And I was very afraid the same thing would happen to my wife. Tiffany assured me that everything was fine, and that nothing like that was being offered to her. I sometimes went to her shows, not only to hear her perform, but to make sure their company didn't look like junkies. So far things were going well. I was comfortable with her. But I didn't like the fact that Craig started visiting our house under the pretext of a professional visit to Tiffany's. He came sometimes even when I wasn't home. I don't want him here. This is our home, and I won't tolerate any intruders in my absence. You're so possessive. He doesn't do anything. He just came by to drop off some changes to my schedule. Don't be mean. At that point, I didn't feel like I was overreacting at all. I just wanted to protect our home. After a while, I began to notice that some things were starting to go missing from the house. When I asked, my wife said she had no idea, saying that maybe I had moved things around on my own. But I remembered perfectly well where and what I had put. And this disappearance did not suit me at all. Some years ago, my uncle gave me some expensive coins, and I kept them under glass in the study, which I locked with the key. Also, I had a few antique statuettes left from my grandmother, but I put them around the house like decorations. And now, 2 of them are missing. I wanted to write a report to the police about the disappearance, but I got the idea of catching the thief myself. After all, if it was Tiffany who decided to take them, I'd hate to have to send her to jail. I bought some security cameras and set them up in several rooms so they wouldn't be visible. If Tiffany was involved in this, she wasn't supposed to know. I put the recordings on my tablet and laptop. It was quiet for a few weeks. Very quiet, in fact. No one showed up at the house and things weren't missing anymore. I was beginning to think I was wasting my time talking to my wife about the missing items. But then one day I saw Craig come back into our house and strut around like he owned the place. At first there was nothing suspicious, but then I noticed that he and Tiffany weren't exactly acting friendly. He kept hugging her and trying to sit her on his lap. I began to feel a sense of anger building up inside me. Tiffany, who I had once sheltered, was now taking advantage of the situation and treating me treacherously. But as it turned out, that wasn't the only surprise from her. I wanted to call her and confront her when I saw them playing together. But my inner voice told me to keep watching. I saw them talking about CDs, the game, and the upcoming concert. Tiffany went to get drinks, and Craig paced the house, and I saw him walk over to the fireplace where there were several expensive statues, one of which he had stashed in the inside pocket of his jacket. There wasn't much more to see. They chatted, and Craig hurried away, evidently so Tiffany wouldn't notice that he had already taken it from the house. In the evening, I arrived at their concert with the police. I provided a tape of the theft to the police. Craig was arrested in front of the entire audience. When they took him away, he was shouting that it was a setup and he would come back. He shouted to the audience to wait for him with more songs and performances and how much he loved them. To my surprise, the audience thought it was part of the show and began applauding loudly, shouting words of encouragement and admiration at him. How could you? What have you done? Tiffany came up to me, accusing me of disrupting their performance. Are you stupid? How could you not see that he was stealing things from us? Do you really think I would just let that go? How are we going to perform without Craig? You don't think about me at all. She turned and walked away to her companions who were discussing what had happened. I wanted to catch up with her and take her home, but she shouted at me to leave her alone. I realized that talking to her now was not going to end well. Tiffany began to change. It seemed to me that she was more into the group than she was into me. Time passed, but Tiffany didn't quit the band. On the contrary, she became their lead singer and their concerts continued. But the relationship between us began to weaken, and we began to fight, sometimes over nothing. She became more and more distant from me. Soon I heard the news that Craig's lawyer got him released, and he was back in the band. Their popularity only increased, and there was no way Tiffany was going to leave the band. I tried to talk to her. I even offered to take her away for a couple of weeks. "You what?" she exclaimed. "We have gigs. I can't miss them. You don't see anything but this band anymore. You don't even see me anymore. Do you even remember that you're married? How can you think that? There's something wrong with your head." Tiffany was getting hysterical, and some of the changes in her personality were starting to worry me. I remembered that I hadn't turned off the cameras in the house, though I hadn't used them in a while. Now I decided to look through the tapes of the last few days, hoping to see something that might explain my wife's behavior. I locked myself in my office and went through the speed camera footage for hours. For a very long time, I saw nothing suspicious, even though it was only recorded while driving, and it helped me to keep track of a few days. Sometime later, I got to the day we had a big fight. I could see myself from the outside and didn't recognize it. We were yelling at each other a lot, and I even took a swing at her, but I didn't hit her. I hadn't been like that before. Maybe it was jealousy that made me act that way. My reflection was interrupted by a video frame when I saw Tiffany run into the bedroom and lock herself in the bathroom. A few minutes later, she came out of there, rubbing her nose hard. I was alarmed by her movements. I began to suspect that she had started using drugs. I gave up watching and went into the same room. I went into the same bathroom and started rummaging through all the cabinets and drawers, trying to find any evidence at all. But I couldn't find anything. Trying to reassure myself that it was just my worst guess, I went into the bedroom and searched through her belongings. Tiffany was at a gig this evening, and I had plenty of time to look. Finally, in the dresser in the far corner behind the laundry, I found a small box. When I opened it, I discovered several packs of condoms, 2 cards, 1 Valentine's card, and a bag of white powder. I sat down on the bed, holding the box in my hands. Realizing that my wife was cheating on me and addicted to drugs made me despise her, her band, and this Craig guy. I checked my watch and realized that my wife should be back from her concert soon. I didn't have to wait long before she arrived. I confronted her by showing her my findings. "How did you go through my things?" She started yelling back at me. "Your things? Have you forgotten that I helped you get settled when you had nowhere else to go? I took you in then, and this is how you repay me? You're just a whore. How long have you been sleeping with Craig? Answer me. It's none of your business. You don't know anything about the music industry. Besides, you've become so boring. How could anyone be interested in you?" I couldn't take it anymore and slapped her in the face. "You asshole," she came at me with her fists. But since I was still stronger, she couldn't hurt me. I pushed her and she hit the wall hard. When she realized she couldn't beat me, she ran out of the house. I didn't go after her. I didn't want to deal with a woman like that anymore. I sat down on the couch with my hands over my face, wondering what I should do next. If it wasn't for her cheating, I could have tried to somehow help her overcome her addiction, but she had completely betrayed me, and I couldn't forgive that. A few days later, I filed for divorce, leaving her with nothing. On the day of the divorce, we had another big fight, and I wouldn't even let her take anything from the house. No valuables, just some of her clothes. She left, and I didn't care what happened to her next. But beyond that, I couldn't shake the urge to get even with Craig for getting involved in our lives and getting Tiffany hooked on drugs. I found out where they usually had their parties. I changed my appearance and went there, trying to remain unrecognizable. At the party, everyone was already high, and hardly anyone there knew me. As one of the guests, I was able to get in, and after a while I managed to find Craig. He was in a dirty room having fun with 2 girls. I didn't see Tiffany anywhere. "We need to talk," I told him. "What do you want?" He recognized me but remained calm. "No witnesses," I said, and Craig nodded at the girls, who then left the room. "So what do you want?" He got up off the bed and took a step toward me. "I'm here for an autograph," I said. I said and slapped him across the face. I didn't stop, I hit him a few more times. His drug intoxication was to my advantage at that point, and he quickly passed out. I was about to leave, but a table caught my eye where there was a syringe and a prepared drug. I filled a syringe full and rolled up Craig's sleeve and injected him with it. He started twitching and passed out. After wiping the syringe, I put it in Craig's hand and left the bed. He asked not to be disturbed. I told the girls who were waiting outside the door. With a shrug of the shoulders, they went off to have some more fun, and I went home. The next day, I heard on the news that Craig had been found dead of a drug overdose. I felt better somehow, and I didn't even feel guilty about it. On the contrary, I was glad there was one less scumbag. A few months went by, and I continued to run my business, but now I lived alone, and I was in no hurry to start a relationship. I didn't look for Tiffany, and I didn't even think about it. It was only once an acquaintance of mine informed me that she was living in a crack house and had changed a lot due to drugs. Dear listeners, your support is very important to us. If you like our story, please like, comment, and subscribe. It's very motivating for us. We need your feedback to improve our content.